If the condition is false, then also the do while statement is going to execute at least once. In my while loop, I'm not going to write the semicolon in order to indicate this is the end of the line. Suppose if your for loop includes only one statement, then no need to write the curly brace. Hello students, a warm welcome to today's session on 5th chapter, and the chapter name is Problem Solving Methodology. I am Revati, faculty, Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, Pre-University College, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. Before going to start my today's session, let me to recall the things what I had discussed in my previous session. In my previous session, I started with multiple selection constructs or switching statement. That means in my previous session, we had discussion regarding how to write the switch statement and what are the syntax I need to follow while writing switch statement. Then we had discussion regarding how to draw the flow chart along with the example. Then we had discussion regarding iterative constructs or looping. So there we studied what is looping. So the name itself indicates that looping is nothing but the repetitive process. That means whatever the statement I want to repeat more than one time, that should be written inside some condition. That means that is written by using some kind of condition. So that is iterative construct or looping. So here looping is nothing but the repetitive process or repetiting process. Then we had discussion regarding the two types of looping construct, that is conditional looping and unconditional looping. Now tell me, dear students, what are the example for conditional looping? The example here is while and do while. Then what about unconditional looping? Here the example is for loop. So these are the three different kinds of looping construct we are going to have in our C++ programming language. After that, we had discussion regarding while construct. There we discussed how to write the syntax. So here syntax is nothing but the structure or rule what I want to follow during writing the code. At the same time, we have discussed how to write the flowchart in my program. That means to illustrate the use of flowchart, I have taken how to print the natural numbers. Then we had discussion regarding how to write the flowchart for while construct. These are the certain topics we discussed in my previous session. Moving further, in today's session, I'm going to deal with how to write do while constructs in my program. Then I'm going to discuss the difference between while and do while loop. Along with that, I'm going to discuss what is for loop, how to use the for loop in my program. Along with that, I'm going to explain how to draw the flowchart for loop. Along with that, I'm going to discuss characteristics of a good program. That means what are the characteristics a good program must include. These are the certain topics I'm going to discuss in my today's session. Moving on to do while construct. So what is do while and what is the difference between while and do while. So if I consider while construct, at the beginning itself, I'm going to check the condition, and if the condition is false, then I won't execute the statement which is written inside the while condition. But in my do while statement, at the beginning I'm going to have do, then I'm going to have certain set of statements, and at the end I'm going to check the condition. For that reason, the do while construct is called post execution. That means if the condition is false, then also the do while statement is going to execute at least once. So that is the difference between while construct as well as do while construct. So this type of construct is called post tested looping construct. This construct checks the condition at the end of the structure. That means the conditions are checked at the end of my statement. So whatever the statement I'm going to have, that is itself called structure. The set of statements are executed again and again until the condition is true. That means at the beginning, I'm not going to check the condition. So what I will do, I'm going to execute certain set of codes. After that, I'm going to check the condition, and if the condition is true, what I will do, I'm going to run same code again and again until the condition is true. When the condition becomes false, the control is transferred out of the structure. That means when this particular condition is false, what's going to happen? The control comes out of the structure. So this is all about do while looping construct. Dear student, from the examination point of view, while statement, do while statement and for loop are very important topic, and you can able to expect 5 marks or 3 marks question. Moving further, I'm going to have the general form. So here general form is nothing but the syntax. That means while writing my program, and suppose if I'm going to use do while construct in my program, what I want to do? I want to follow the certain rules or procedure. That is itself called syntax. So at the beginning, I'm going to have do statement. Then I'm going to have curly brace. Then I'm going to write the certain set of statement, and I'm going to close my while, that is do. Then I'm going to write the condition here, and at the end I'm going to write the semicolon. So dear student, just remember that at the beginning I'm going to have do keyword. Then I'm going to use curly brace. That means now this is the starting point so that I can able to write my statement. So here I can able to write n number of statement. So I'll write statement 1, statement 2 and statement n. Now I'm going to close this curly brace. At the end, I'm going to check the condition. That means the do while loop is also called post tested loop construct. So here I'm going to write the condition. So what is the keyword here I'm going to have? That is while. Then I'm going to write the condition, and I want to close the condition. For that reason, I'm going to write the semicolon at the end. So dear students, just remember that suppose if I'm going to use while loop construct in my program, I'm not going to close the while construct. That means first I'm going to write the while and I'm going to specify the condition. But I'm not going to write semicolon while using while loop. Just remember that in my while loop, I'm not going to write the semicolon in order to indicate this is the end of the line. But in do while, what I will do? At the beginning, I'm going to use do. Then I'm going to write the certain set of statement inside the curly brace. Then at the end, I'm going to check the condition and I'm going to put the semicolon. So this is also the difference between while loop as well as do while loop. Moving further, let's consider the example. Think that I want to print natural number. So how many numbers I want to print? That is from 1 to 10. I want to print natural numbers. For that reason, I'm going to use the for loop. Instead of using while loop, what I will do? I'm going to take do. Then at the end, I'm going to write while condition. Before that, I want to initialize my variable. Which are the variables I'm going to use here? That is I and n. So I'm going to assign the value 10 to n. Now I'm going to write the statement. So print I. That means first time I want to get 1. Then I'm going to increment I, that is I plus plus. Then what I want to do? I want to check my condition. So while, I'm going to use the word while, then I less than or equal to n. If this condition is true, the control is transferred into do statement. Once again, execute certain steps. That means execute certain statement. That is, I'm going to have 2 now. That means I'm going to print 2. Then once again, I'm going to increment I by 1. Now I is 3. So here 3 less than or equal to 10. It is true. What I will do? Once again, I'm going to print I. What is the value of I? It is 3. Then what I want to do? I want to increment I by 1. Now I is 4. So this process is continued when I is 9. I repeat, this process is going to continue when I is 9. I'm going to compare I less than or equal to 10. It is true. So I'm going to print 9. Then the I is incremented by 1. Now I is 10. 10 less than or equal to 10. It is true. So what I'm going to do? I'm going to print 10. Then I is incremented by 1. Now I is 11. Now I, that is 11 less than or equal to 10. It is false. So no need to execute the same statement once again. So what is going to happen here? The control is transferring. That means whatever the control I'm going to have, that is transferred into next statement. Dear students, now I'm going to consider another example. That is, I want to find the sum of given number. So it's going to start from 1 less than or equal to 100. That means how many times I want to execute these steps? That is 100 times. So it is repeated process, or continuously I'm going to execute these many statements. For that reason, I'm going to use the do while construct. So at the beginning, sum equal to 1 and I equal to 1. Now what I'm going to do? I'm going to add sum and I. So here sum is 1, I is 1. Now what's the value of sum? It is 2. Then I equal to I plus 1. That means I'm going to increment I by 1. Now I is 2. 2 less than or equal to 100. It is true. Now, what's the I value here? 2. 2 plus, what is my sum? It is 2. So, I'm going to have the value 4. Now, increment I by 1. It is 3. 3 less than or equal to 100. It is true. So, this statement is going to execute when this condition get failed. Until then, the same code is going to execute. How many times? It is 100 times. Moving further, I'm going to have the flow chart. That means how I can able to draw the flow chart for do while construct. So just remember that at the beginning, I'm going to have the statement, then I'm going to have the condition. So at the beginning, what I'm going to have here, it is set of statement. Then I'm going to have the condition. So if this condition is true, what's going to happen? I'm going to execute certain set of statement once again. Suppose once again, if this condition is true, what is going to happen? Same thing, I'm going to execute same set of instruction once again until and unless the particular defined condition is get failed. So when this condition is failed, that means false, then exit do while statement. That means the control is transferred to next statement. This is the way the do while statement is going to work. Then I'm going to have the difference between while and do while loop. That means what are the difference I'm going to have when I use while or do while statement in my program. So at the beginning, I'm going to have while. So the while is called pre-tested loop. That means suppose if I'm going to use while loop in my program, at the beginning itself, I'm going to check the condition. For that reason, it is called pre-tested loop. Then if I consider do while statement, what's going to happen? At the beginning, I'm going to have do keyword and I'm going to have certain step of code. Then at the end, I'm going to have condition. That means at the beginning itself, if the condition is false, then also I'm going to execute the code at least once. So for that reason, it is post tested. That means at the end, I'm going to test the condition. Then what is the second difference here? The minimum execution of loop is 0. That means I'm going to check the condition at the beginning itself. If the condition is false at the beginning itself, then no need to execute the statement. But whereas in do while, if the condition is false, then also the do while statement is going to execute the statement at least once. So this is my second difference. Then what is my third difference here? That is syntax. That means in my while condition, I'm going to write the while condition at the beginning and I'm going to check the condition. If this condition is true, I'm going to execute these many statement. If this condition is false, no need to execute this statement. The control directly transferred into next statement. But whereas in do while statement, at the beginning, I'm going to have do keyword and I'm going to have certain set of statement. That means if the condition is failed, then also I'm going to execute these many statements at least one time. After executing these statements, only I'm going to check my condition. For that reason, it is called post-tested loop. The another difference under while is semicolon is not used. That means while using while statement, I'm not going to write the semicolon. Whereas suppose if I'm going to use do while statement in my program, then I'm going to write the semicolon. So this is the another difference between while and do while statement. Moving further, I'm going to have another type of construct, that is for construct. So this is also example for unconditional looping construct. So this structure is the fixed execution structure. That means when I know that this many time I want to execute the code, that time I can able to use the for construct. So the structure is the fixed execution structure. That means suppose if I want to those many statements 5 times, so here the number 5 is fixed. So it is fixed execution structure. This structure is usually used when we know in advance exactly how many times assets of statement is to be repeatedly executed again and again. That means suppose if I want to use for loop in my program, I must know how many times the same statement is going to execute again and again in advance. That situation I can able to use for loop in my program. This structure can be used as increment loop or decrement loop. That means while using for loop, I can able to increment the value or I can able to decrement the structure. So the for construct is called fixed execution structure. Moving further, I'm going to have the syntax. What is syntax here? Once again, rules I want to follow while writing for loop. So what is the word I'm going to have here? That is for. So what is for here? That is keyword. So here for is nothing but the keyword. Then I'm going to have the expression 2 and expression 3. So dear student, just remember that in my for loop, I'm going to have 3 different sections. So what is my first section? That is expression. Then what is my next expression? That is my second section. Then what is my third section? That is expression 3. So how many sections I'm going to have here? It is total 3. So here once again I'm going to have opening curly brace, then I'm going to have certain set of statement. And dear student, just remember one thing, that suppose if your for loop includes only one statement, then no need to write the curly brace. That means whatever the statement you have that does not return inside the curly brace. And if your for loop includes more than one statement, that time what I want to do, I want to write those many statements inside the curly brace. Then let's see what is expression 1, what is expression 2 and what is expression 3. So dear student, just remember that here your expression 1 is nothing but the initialization. That means suppose if you want to initialize any variable and you're going to use inside the for loop, that variables are initialized in the for loop. So in the expression 1, I can able to initialize the variable. Then what is my second expression? That means suppose if I want to check the condition, that should be written in place of expression 2. And what is expression 3 here? That means suppose if I want to increment variable or decrement the value of variable, that should be return inside the expression 3. So at the beginning, initialization, then I'm going to have the condition, then increment or decrement. And dear student, while writing for loop in your program, then you must follow the certain rules. That is nothing but the general form. Moving further, I'm going to have the example, that is, say I want to find the sum of natural number, that is from 1 to 10. So at the beginning, I'm going to have the initialization, then I'm going to have the condition, then I'm going to have the increment or decrement. So here I'm going to have only one statement, so no need to write this statement inside the curly brace. So what I want to do here, I want to find the sum. So what is the sum value here? Sum is 0. 0, what is the I value? That is 1. That means I less than 1. It is true. Then what I want to do? I want to find the sum. That is 0 plus 1. Now what is sum here? Sum equal to 1. Now what I want to do? I want to increment I by 1. What is I value now? I is 2. So 2 less than or equal to 10. It is true. So what I want to do? I want to add 1 plus 2. It is 3. Now what I want to do? I want to increment I by 1. So I is now 3. Here 3 less than or equal to 10. It is true. So what I'm going to have? That is 3 plus 3. It is 6. So this process is going to continue until this condition is going to fail. Consider another example that I want to print the natural number and the number starts from 1 to 10. So what I want to do here? I want to print the natural number. So what I will do? First I'm going to write the for loop. Then what is the variable I'm going to use here? That is I, and I'm going to initialize by 1. And in order to differentiate initialization and condition, I'm going to use the semicolon. Then I'm going to write the condition I less than or equal to 10. To differentiate, once again semicolon, and here I plus plus. So this is my condition. Dear student, just remember that at the beginning I'm going to have initialization. Then I'm going to have condition. Then I'm going to have increment or decrement. Now I'm going to write the program to print the natural number. That means I want to print the number from 1 to 10. So what I will do? I'm going to use print I. That means I want to print I value. Then I'm going to close. So I'm going to trace this logic. That means at the beginning, what is the value of I? I is 1. So what I will do? I'm going to compare 1 with 10. So that is 1 less than or equal to 10. It is true. If it is true, the control comes into this statement. That means I'm going to print I value. So what's the I value here? That is 1. After printing, what I want to do? I want to increment I by 1. So what I will do? I'm going to increment the I by 1. Now I is 2. So after incrementing, what I want to do? I want to check the condition. So what is the I value here? That is 2 less than or equal to 10. It is true. So what I will do? I'm going to print my second value. That is 2. After that, once again, I'm going to increment the I value by 1. Now I is 3. 3 less than or equal to 10. It is true. So I'm going to display 3 value. And this process is going to continue until and unless when I is less than or equal to 10, it is true. So I can able to print 10 and I is going to increment by 1. Now I value is 11. 11 less than or equal to 10, it is false. So no need to execute this statement. The control comes out of this structure. Now, what are the things I want to remember here? That at the beginning, I'm going to have for word, then I'm going to have initialization. So, first I'm going to initialize the value, then I'm going to check the condition. If the condition is true, what I will do? I'm going to execute certain statements, then what I will do? I'm going to increment or decrement the variable value. After incrementing and decrementing variable value, what I will do? Once again, I'm going to check the condition. And if this condition is true, what I want to do? Once again, I want to run certain statement. After that, I'm going to increment or decrement my variable. Once again, I'm going to check the condition. If the condition is true, execute certain step of statement, increment or decrement the value. So this process is going to execute until and unless whatever the condition you had specified in your program that gets failed. Moving further, I'm going to have the flow chart. That means how to write the flow chart for while loop. So at the beginning, I'm going to have start, then I'm going to have the initialization, then I'm going to have the condition, that is test condition. Then I'm going to have block of statement and update the expression. That means increment or decrement value based on your program statement. And once again, I'm going to enter into the condition, that is test condition and block of statement. Once again, update your variable, then move on to the text condition, execute block of statement, then update the expression. So this process is going to continue. When this particular condition is get failed, that means if this condition is failed, what's going to happen? The control is directly transferred to next statement. So this is the working procedure of for loop. That means at the beginning, I'm going to have initialization. So this is my initialization. Then I'm going to check the condition. Then I'm going to execute certain set of block and I'm going to increment or decrement my variable value. So here I'm going to initialize the variable only once, but I'm going to check the condition and I'm going to run the block of statement n number of times. So here n is nothing but the condition specified in your for loop. So this is the working procedure of for constructs. Moving further, what are the things you want to remember while using for loop or while loop or do while loop? That means suppose if I'm going to use for loop in my program at the beginning, use for loop when number of iteration is known beforehand. That means suppose if I know how many times I want to repeat the code, that means in advance I know how many times I want to repeat same number of codes. That time I can directly use for loop. Then what's the next point I want to remember here? Suppose if I want to use while loop where exact number of iteration is not known but the loop termination condition is known. That means suppose if I want to use while loop in my program, I don't want to know the exact number of time I'm going to repeat the statement, but I must know the termination condition. Otherwise, what's going to happen? It's going to enter into the infinite loop. That means if the specified condition itself wrong, then what's going to happen? the program is going to enter into the infinite loop. So that is the main disadvantage of looping construct. That means while using any looping construct, we must know the condition. That means we must have to specify the condition clearly and properly. The next thing I want to remember here is use do while loop if the code need to be executed at least once. That means suppose if you want to execute your code at least once, that time you can able to use the do while construct. So these are the 3 steps we want to remember while using programming construct. And why I require do while loop in my program? That means suppose if I want to display the menu, that means I want to display menu list but I don't want to execute, that time I can able to use do while statement. That means suppose if I use do while statement in my program, it is going to execute the program at least once if the condition is false also. So this is the main difference between while and do while. So dear students, now tell me when I can able to use for loop in my program. That means in advance, if I know the total number of iteration I require, that time I can able to use the for loop. Then dear student, tell me when I can able to use the while loop. That means if I'm not sure about the total number of iteration, but I know what is the condition I want to write. In that situation, I can able to use while loop. That means I know the termination condition, but I'm not sure about the iteration. That time I can able to use while loop. And when I can able to use the do while loop in my program, that means if the condition is false but still I want to run the code at least once, that time I can able to use the do while loop. That means suppose if I want to display the menu list, that time I can able to use the do while construct. So here the best program must include certain characteristics. In that first one, it must take less memory space and takes less execution time and easy to modify and portable. So at the beginning, whatever the program I'm going to write, that should be capable to use only less memory space, and the execution speed is always high. That means to execute that particular code, it must take less time and it is very easy to modify. That means whatever the program I'm going to write, that should be very easy to modify and it is portable. That means whatever the program I'm going to write in one machine, that should be executed in some other machine. So these are the very important characteristics of a good program. So what is the first characteristics? It is going to occupy very less memory space and it must take less execution time, portable and easy to modify. So here what is modification? That means a good program is the one which allow any modification easily whenever needed. That means a good program must support the characteristics that it can be modified very easily by anyone, because all the documents or all the information related to the programs are stored in the documentation. By seeing the documentation, anyone can very easily understand what is the program, what's the logic, everything. So based on that, it is very easy to modify. That means if I consider any programming language, it may be C, C++, Java or Python, the programming language must support easy modifiability. So Here modification is very important, that a good program must allow the modification. Then portability. A good program is the one which can be run on different types of machine with a minimum or no change. That means whatever the program I'm going to write, that should be portable. That means what is portable? I can able to carry the program from one machine to another machine. For example, think that I have written any program for one machine, and suppose if I want to run same program in another machine with the small or minimum modification, I can able to run that program. So that is portability. That means I'm going to say that the program is portable. So these are the very important characteristics of good programming. So what are the characteristics? It must occupy very less memory space. The execution time is very less, and it should be portable, and it should be modifiable. That means you can able to modify the existing program. So these are the good characteristics of a good program. So dear students, in my today's session we discussed what is do while loop. Along with that we discussed the general form of do while loop. Then we had discussion regarding for loop along with the example flowchart as well as syntax. Then we had discussion regarding the characteristics of a good programming. So dear student, from the examination point of view, while loop and the for loop is very important. Along with that, do while loop is also very important, and you can able to expect 3 marks or 5 marks question. And at the same time, the difference between while loop and the do while loop is also very important question, and you can able to expect 3 mark question. Along with that, the characteristics of a good program is also very important topic, and here you can able to expect 2 or 3 marks. So dear students, let's meet in my next session with some more information about problem solving methodology. Until then, keep watching and keep learning. Thank you.